start this morning's conversation with welcoming some familiar faces, maybe a new face to Morning Barbados, but with a cause that we've been talking about for a long time, the Sankofa pilgrimage to Barbados. The time is now. So let me go right ahead and say good morning and welcome to some wonderful people who are joining us in this segment called Conversations on CARICOM. But today we have to extend the borders. So Ambassador Comissiong is here, and also joining us again this morning, Ambassador Lorenzo Witherspoon and Loyce Witherspoon. Welcome. Good to have all of you with us.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Teshia.
to be here.
Good to be here.
We're here. It feels like we've been talking about this pilgrimage for a long, long time, Ambassador, and finally it's here.
Well, you know, we're extending the eastern border of the Caribbean community all across the Atlantic to the west coast of Africa, especially to this African, west coast African country, Liberia, that has so much meaning for us Barbadians. So we are so happy that we're able to welcome hundreds of our Liberian kith and kin who are on this pilgrimage back home to the land of their ancestors, led by Ambassador Lorenzo Witherspoon and his lovely daughter, Loyce. So that's what it's all about. It's still a conversation on CARICOM. CARICOM in Africa.
Extended border edition. Now, Ambassador Witherspoon, we were trying to decipher just before we came on air precisely when the conversations on this end started. And you said 2001, and I could barely even think that it's been so long, but we really truly have been.
2021.
2021.
2021.
Yes, 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't even feel like it's been that long that we've been in conversation. But you know, how have you passed the time in terms of what you've been doing with, you know, getting people on board to make this trek?
Well, thanks, Teshia, again. The first 6 months in 2021, it was a period of I was moving from the face of active employment with the UN in Geneva to transitioning into my new occupation as a pensioner. So those 6 months, I began laying the groundwork, foundational work for committing at least the first phase of my retirement to this project. So from the day we arrived back in South Africa, that's when all the planning began. And of course, the first thing to do was to assemble a global team of interlocutors who would give freely of their resources and their time to help us put this all together. Actually, you know, when the Prime Minister rang my bell, when I met with her in 2021 and wondered aloud whether it wouldn't be a good thing if we can bring descendants of all these people back here, I said, of course it would. Then I quickly realized after I got back to Geneva that, wait a minute, I've accepted something, a responsibility, that I now, once the bell is rang, you can't unring it. And I said, I have to go through with this. And thanks to my wife and, of course, my daughter, who have been steady supporters, we got it started. And once I got back to Pretoria, like I said earlier, it was just nonstop, just full steam.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you have to introduce your daughter, Loyce, to us, because you're the one who has brought her here for the first time. So pleasure to meet you. But there's a whole lot more than meets the eye. You've been working together as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Loyce, she planted the seed in my head when she was still doing undergraduate studies at McGill University in Toronto. Back in, what, 1999? 2000?
2012.
2012, yes.
Yeah.
And so, and in fact, she began the work of really the initial research. And so once she got done with that, and she finished her program, her undergrad degree, she had more time to commit to it. I think she had about 6 months before starting her master's, and she was home in Geneva with us, so we just went full steam at it. But I'll let her speak for herself. She's
Well, actually, it's interesting because it starts much earlier than that for me. It started around 2007, which was when we moved from South Africa back to Switzerland. And I think growing up in a majority white environment, I started to have all of these questions around who my family was and where I really came from. Those were questions I didn't even know where to begin finding the answers to. And that's what initiated my first kind of scratching of the itch of visiting some of our family in Los Angeles, and getting to connect the dots between Switzerland and that part of the US. And that really unlocked something within me. I think that started this much longer process of connecting the dots much further, and really spearheading this initiative with my dad of figuring out what we could actually find through online research, through archives about our family, about where we came from. And I think knowing that history, especially growing up in an environment where no one really looks like you, is even more important. And so it's just become a thread throughout the past decade of my life. And I never would have thought, if I look back to when I was about 14 years old, 15 years ago, that we'd be at this point today.
That's right.
Of not just going back a couple of years to meet family members, but being able to actually surface history from 200, 300 years. So it feels like a huge achievement to be here.
It truly is a huge achievement, and feels like full circle. A lot of people might ask, why now? But even technology has made times and things and research so much easier than it would have been years ago. We really had to go by what we found within pages and by what was told to us, and not necessarily, be in a space where you can reach out to other people and connect the way that we can now, Ambassador.
Yes, and let's put it all into context for our viewers. They're here today because in 1865, a group of 346 African Barbadians, black Barbadians, answered the call of the then president of the Independent Republic of Liberia, President Daniel Warner, to migrate to Liberia. And they made this arduous trip across the Atlantic back to the home of their forefathers, 346 of them. And they planted themselves in Liberia. And this is the fruit of those roots that were planted back in 1865. That party of Barbadians went on to become a very important part of the Liberian population, producing presidents and secretaries of state and judges and business people and diplomats and scholars, and and it's so wonderful that we have brought the circle, right back around. So we are reconnecting through them with Liberia. Because of this initiative, Barbados has finally established diplomatic relations with Liberia.
Applause for that.
Yeah, so we are setting the foundation for a wonderful relationship to come between the two countries.
We're absolutely on our way. And I have to say a special good morning to Belle Holder. She was texting me at like 4 o'clock this morning, but I know that she knows I'm up already. So I know the BTMI will be keeping you busy while you're here.
Right.
Oh, yes.
And so coming up tomorrow, there's actually an event. They're inviting Barbadians to come out to a genealogy marketplace hosted by the BTMI at the Department of Archives. And
From 9 a.m.?
yeah,
From 9 a.m. tomorrow?
The post that they have online, they've posted quite a few of the names of Barbadians who left.
Right.
So let's share some of those names with you. Skeet Padmore, Hinds, that's me. Barclay Wiles, Darrell Wharton Holder, Jackman Hunt, Bourne, Cadogan, Armstrong, Worrell, Thorpe, Graves, Douglas, Innes, Gall, Doldren, Moore, Briggs, Tull, Blackett, Port, Murray, Collier, Gittins, Graves, Broome, Cadell, Brown, Clark, Austin, Devonish, and we can go on and on and on. Nurse, Goodrich, Francis, Taylor, Nelson. All of these are names that we've come to feel and know as authentically Barbadian names. Applewhite, Weeks, Cox, Jones, Lane, William, Moore. I know these are your names, so you should pay particular interest. And this is a great opportunity to really connect, Ambassador.
Yeah, and we're going to have over the next 10 days, well, tomorrow, and everybody's invited, huh? The whole of Barbados is invited to the Genealogy Marketplace tomorrow. It's going to be not just genealogy, but it's going to be culture, it's going to be everything. And then tomorrow night as well at the Barbados Museum, 6 p.m., we're going to be showing a documentary about our Barbadian Liberians in Liberia, children of Lemongrass Street. And then on Thursday, at the UWI Cave Hill campus, under the big graduation tent, there's going to be a whole Barbados Liberia history exposition. So Barbadians are invited again, 9 o'clock. Then Thursday evening, there's going to be the libation ceremony at Browns Beach, just opposite government headquarters at 5:30. We're going to, all of those names, well, you mentioned the family names, but we are going to have a libation ceremony where we invoke all 346 names of the passengers on that vessel in 1865. Friday at, again, at 9 a.m., a Liberia Barbados Business Roundtable at the Hilton Hotel, sponsored by Invest Barbados. And Barbadian business people who are interested in doing business with Liberia, you really should be there. And Sunday, the 12th of May, 9 a.m. sharp at the James Street Methodist Church. We are going to have a very special church service because James Street Methodists played a very important role in that 1865 migration. That is where a lot of the prayers went up for the success of that trip back to Africa. And that trip, not a single person got ill or died on that trip, which was very, very unusual back in the 19th century. You didn't do a journey across the Atlantic and people didn't get sick or die. Right. But this was almost miraculous. So perhaps those prayers that went up from James Street Methodist made a big difference.
I'll hold on to that. Now, you've written a book. It's called Ports Find a New Home in Liberia.
Yeah.
And this is a book that you've co-authored with your daughter.
Yeah. Well, we did, the book is based on the paper, our first the research paper that we put out there. And I must say it represents the first time that a descendant of one of these 346 Barbadians that went back to Liberia ever put in the public domain the result of a research that's been done, genealogical research, ancestral research about their families. I would like to hope that this has triggered something. Indeed, this whole movement that began 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, has already paid dividends. Ambassador Comissiong mentioned the establishment of diplomatic relations for the first time in 159 years between the two countries, but also just because of the pilgrimage, we see people, business people, organizing group trips. There's a big group being organized for 500 people coming to Barbados doing crop over by the Ghanaian blogger. He was talking about it on YouTube the other day. So the traction that this movement, and that's how I see it, as a movement, because after we leave Barbados, next year at the same time we'll be in Liberia. And that's again part of the Prime Minister's dream. She wants to take Barbadians, not only from Barbados, but from the global diaspora, Bajan diaspora, to see where the people went to Crozerville, which is where the part of the country that was given by President Warner for the Barbadians to settle in. So they would all be together, because Monrovia had the Americans that had come about 30 years earlier. And so he wanted us to have our own place in Barbados.
In Liberia.
In Liberia. And if you go there today, you would think you're in Barbados. Because there's a Bajan outpost in Liberia. And so today, as we're preparing for this event, I decided just 10 days ago that, you know what, I need to now make this paper, transform this paper into a book. So I found a printer in Pretoria, and I decided I want to do a limited edition, just print 30 copies that I can bring with me and share with my friends on the island, of course, principally the Prime Minister, as a thank you for everything we've done. We're going to run a commercial version that will go on sale globally on the 1st of September. But this limited edition, 30 copies, I want to leave as a physician's desk reference, a PDR, that this has everything. In the back here, we have the manifest of the ship. Every family, every person rather, that was on that ship coming here. So, all in all, this is where anyone who's interested in tracing their ancestry, this is a good place to start.
Talk to me a little bit about, what it was as you were getting ready to make that journey here. I can just imagine how charged the environment was.
It was amazing, but let me get back to the beginning. My suitcase and my carry-on bag was packed 3 weeks in advance. That's how exciting it was, I mean, not only mine, my wife's. My wife had to travel the week before going to Sierra Leone on a work mission and got back 1 o'clock the afternoon, and our flight was, we had to leave at 4 o'clock for the airport. So she just dropped one suitcase and picked up other suitcases. But that's just on our side. Globally, and last night, I mean, we're together, and pardon my voice, until about 2 o'clock this morning. People didn't want to leave St. Lawrence Caps. They were just there. Everybody's so amazing. And everybody, in the room when we're doing the registration with BTMI, you could sense the joy, the happiness. And of course, we had them prepare some rum cocktails as well, so that helped to elevate people. And we're playing Liberian music throughout. And people were dancing as they were registering, but the excitement. Yesterday we registered about 15 people who were not already registered.
Wow.
And I spoke with both Ambassador Comissiong and Senator King, and I said, look, we have more people. People are coming. And even though we only had 235 people registered, who confirmed their registration, we had 535 that had registered. We believe at least 200 of those remaining 300 and something odd people are going to come. They will all be here. They just can't be a part of the official program because we have constraints with numbers. But the excitement, I can assure you, it's palpable. People are just so very excited.
Loyce, this is a full circle moment, I would imagine, for you, or at least part of the circle, because there's so much more to do. But from a place where you sought to find out more about your history and genealogy to where you're here in Barbados, what does that feel like? What are some of the most remarkable moments?
I actually arrived on Friday, so before the whole program began, to just soak up the island and get a feel for it before we officially kicked off yesterday. And it's honestly felt like home. I've said it to everyone since arriving that I've never traveled somewhere where I felt as safe and as integrated. We've rented a car, we've driven across Bathsheba to Speightstown, we've gone across the whole island. And
well, you've conquered the island already.
In just 2 days.
And she's a global traveler. She travels all the time.
People have been so warm, and it's felt like we fit right in. We fit right in. It's been an incredible experience.
Your thoughts on the book, though? I know I want to peek at that manifest. Yeah. We have some stories even from that.
You know, it's so interesting because I'm actually a researcher in my professional life. So for me, my whole role as a researcher is understanding people and ultimately using conversation and connection to drive empathy and understanding. That's what I do day to day in my life in London working, and it's really what this book is all about. It's when you're able to bring words and knowledge together to really shed light on that historical context and give people like me, that 14-year-old version of myself, the faith that there is something here, that there's so much more to you than you actually understand. And I think that's what writing this book, co-authoring it, has really been for me. It's piecing all of the puzzles in my childhood that I could never quite connect. And I think, as my dad said, in 2025 and 2026, taking this to Liberia and to Ghana, this is just one part of the story. And now understanding, if we were to go back 100 years from the 1800s, 200 years, what more might we find out? What other pieces of the puzzle are there to discover?
And there are many.
And there are many. So I think this is a hugely pivotal moment to bring all of this together and give other people asking the same questions of where they're from, you know, what their family history looks like. It gives them a tool to hopefully scratch that itch and bridge some of that curiosity.
And bridging that curiosity, Ambassador Comissiong did. No sooner than you said there's a manifest in the back, I saw him searching through his own book. And I know that you have some interesting information to share as you comb through the pages. You happened upon a name, so give us that story.
Well, I found the name at passenger 253. There were 346, but passenger 253 is one Arthur Barclay, age 10 years old, religion Episcopalian, and that 10-year-old boy, that little boy that went across at 10 years old, grew up to become president of Liberia, President Arthur Barclay.
Wow.
And that Barclay family produced not just one Liberian president, but two. Edwin Barclay as well in the 1930s. And I must tell you that this resonates because perhaps the most famous member of the pilgrimage is another president of Liberia who's here with us, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the first female African president. And so, and she and Prime Minister Motley are actually going to be having a fireside chat. So just to make the point that, yes, I mean, this is full of history, this little manifest. There's so many stories here in just this list of names. And Barclay, that little boy, his father was Anthony Barclay, and who's also listed here. And he was the husband of Sarah Ann, born Barclay. And Sarah Ann, born before she became a Barclay, was the daughter of London born. And we do not really know the true story of Barbados until we know the life of London born and Samuel Jackman Prescott. Because the two of them, London born and Samuel Jackman Prescott, were those two heroic Barbadians in that early post-emancipation period after slavery was abolished, who organized and agitated and advocated for Barbadians to go back to Africa, to take the trip like this Liberia one, to go back and to help to rebuild their ancestral continent. But by the time they managed to achieve this 1865 voyage, the two of them, unfortunately, were old men, so they couldn't go. But they were represented by London's daughter, Sarah Ann Bourne, who had married Anthony Barclay and produced, actually they produced 11 children, including this little boy, this youngest Arthur Barclay, 10 years old. So this is some of the most important history of Barbados.
It's living history.
Yeah, and we have we have to get to know it
as we look around Barbados and we hear the London Board Towers in Bridgetown, for example, on Bay Street, and we hear of Samuel Jackman Prescott, to be able to put family ties behind it and bring these stories and then bring people back and show how they came to life, not only here, but across the globe. That really brings history to life, and that makes all the difference.
let me tell you another piece of history that you probably don't know. I will present you a copy of the book.
Loyce, we could talk to these two all day.
Yeah.
You will have the manifest. But on this voyage, this singular historic voyage to Liberia, the largest family that was there was your family. 17 members of the Hinds family were on this. It's the largest family delegation that was there. So I can assure you, you have roots. Your umbilical cord may be buried in Barbados, but your roots are in Liberia.
You just made me so emotional.
It is. It's just, and for me, it was, I couldn't believe it. What
17
we did,
members of the Hinds family were on the boat?
what we did, we have another list. We deconstructed this list and reconstructed it. Because the saying was that there were 50-odd families in 346. Well, and that excludes the 14 stowaways that they found when the ship arrived in Liberia. But when we reconstructed it, we found out that, no, there were 347, not 346. And secondly, that there were 72 surnames. So not 50 families. And what we did was we grouped every singular name, like you will see when you go through this. Hinds is on different groups. So maybe there were a Hinds group that lived in Bridgetown. There was a Hinds group that lived in St. Joseph. And they probably didn't even know each other. But when they did the manifest, you have 2 or 3, and many families are like that, names, So we put all the singular surnames together. And we came up with 72 surnames. I don't know how that happened, but that's just the way it is, So it just speaks more to the fact that these people, I don't think, and before the Cora left, there's an earlier ship, I can't remember the name now. There were people who were also planning and waiting to get on the Cora. But they were so excited, they wanted to leave so badly. I guess there was a ship here heading to West Africa, and they jumped on it.
They went to Sierra Leone.
They jumped on that ship. So there's a previous delegation whose names, a group of families whose names are not on this manifest, but they went ahead.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to take a chance. If this thing doesn't happen, because mind you, there were 3 attempts to sail, and they were both canceled because of bad weather. But I think by then these guys the first group had long gone. They just didn't want to take a chance, For them, they had made up their minds. They had decided within their souls that they would die trying to get to Liberia.
Loyce, I know why you're a researcher. I know now, what do you hope to take away from this particular journey?
I hope to take away building a generation of people who understand where they come from and have a sense of rootedness. Because if I could describe my childhood in one word amongst many, I would pick rootless. And I think when you grow up across many different countries, continents, and contexts, answering that question of where do you belong or where you feel from is a really convoluted question because you're pulling at multiple threads. I think what I take away from this week is more of a surety within myself and within this moment of time where I'm existing in a very long and very powerful lineage of people that came before me, and actually being able to have the words and the knowledge to speak to that history and to bridge that gap. That would be my takeaway.
Well, I most certainly look forward to speaking with, if not all, most of the people who are here. We definitely have to put some things in stream, ambassadors, both, to be able to make this to happen. Thank you for pushing through the cocktails from last night and making it here this morning. I'm sure there will be exciting times ahead in the next few days.
I can just tell you,
Barbados.
Teshia, I think more than half of the delegation, perhaps much more than half, are people from her age group. And most of them, the largest part of the delegation, from our family alone, from Minnesota and around there are 67 people from the Port family that are here. But all these young people, they're even more excited about this than we are, because it seems like they finally realize who they are, where they're from, you know, and that uniqueness that they couldn't understand has now become, again, borrowing your word, full circle. They now say, yes, this is who we are. And this place is just like Liberia.
All right, we're going to delve into this some more, but I have
You
to
know.
say goodbye for now.
Okay.
So thank you so much for coming in. It's good to see you. We've been in contact, you know, online and via WhatsApp. Again, technology kind of making things so much easier. And Ambassador Comissiong has been on this journey forever.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.